Hello, fellow teachers. Welcome to the EdYouWell podcast, a show created for teachers, by teachers, with teachers. I'm Alex Bush.
And I'm Chelsea Henderson. With over 30 years of combined teaching experience, we're here to help you find balance in your professional and personal lives.
Join us as we dive into a well of information, exploring insights, strategies, and practical tips that you can apply both within and beyond your classroom walls.
So whether you're new to teaching or a seasoned expert, this podcast is for you. Let's be well
and do well
together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to EdYouWell. This is part 2 of Connections Before Curriculum, and today we are going to expand on building community in the classroom because our work will be that much more enjoyable when our students are feeling valued and comfortable in their learning space. So I know we're still in the anticipation phase right now, and we're excited about going into the school, and there's a little bit of trepidation still, but the sky is the limit at this point in this beautiful September month. So today we're going to start talking about ways that we can help students to be a part of a community.
Building community will help create a safer and more comfortable space, as we're going to keep repeating in this episode. Today, we're going to focus on 4 ideas. First, we're going to discuss how to begin recognizing what kinds of connections we need to make with students. Next, we'll go into establishing communication guidelines. Third, we want to talk about creating those commonalities with students. And finally, as promised in the last episode on building community, we'll give you some more ideas on how to infuse traditions into your classroom or school communities. So let's dive into the well.
Let's do it.
The first thing I want to talk about is recognizing the connections that are needed for students, because obviously every student is different. So we need to start gaining an awareness as to what kinds of connections we want to begin making with the students. And this can be difficult. It means, how are we going to communicate with them? What do they need from us? And it might not work every time. I mean, we're dealing with at least 30 people in a room. We might have multiple classes. So of course it's difficult to reach every student, but our goal is always to just try. I find that most times when we make the effort with these students all year, there will be some kind of progress. So back to the book Kids These Days. I'm going to bring it up again by Dr. Jody Carrington.
You bring up this book a lot, and it clearly has resonated with you. So I want to hear about this.
It's had a major impact on my teaching, and especially in the making connections with students.
Okay.
I definitely recommend it for all teachers. So Dr. Jody talks about how each child has a bucket, and we can try to determine if that child is coming to school with a full bucket or with a bucket that may have some holes or leaks in it, or a bucket that is absolutely depleted or empty. And she explains 3 types of kids. There are the regular lid flippers, and these are pretty much all kids, because all kids get emotionally dysregulated, as they should. Every child should get emotionally dysregulated, and then they learn how to regulate their emotions through our modeling and through teaching them. Mm-hmm. So the regular lid flippers require little encouragement or guidance to become regulated again. So these are common situations like arguments with peers or being frustrated with work. And the strategy here is fairly simple. These are kids whose buckets may be pretty full, and all they require is a top up with guidance or conversation just to get them back on track.
Yeah, that's kind of an easy reset thing. It's not going to take a lot of your time.
That's right.
I like that one.
And then she talks about kids who are going to require a lot more of your attention and your patience and your energy. And these are kids that might be needier, and it's possible that they have some holes in their buckets, and it's important to recognize that.
With this style of student, I know that a very high percentage of your time ends up working with the students who really require more of your attention. That's something to be mindful of, is you've got this whole class full of students, and 1, 2, or 3 of them could be really using a great deal of your time. And just to be aware that's the way it is.
It's definitely the way it is. Yeah. Every class, that's what happens, right?
You start to hear the same name over and over. Yeah.
That's right. So the strategy in the book that Dr. Jody gives is, rather than consequences, we want to try to empower the student. And the strategy would be to try to fill those holes in their buckets before the child asks. So, for example, beat them to the punch. You can ask them, did you fill your water bottle today? If they come in with their water bottle empty. Or do you have your pencil today? Before they ask you for a pencil. Or did you get your computer today?
The reason that I really like that is because the student is not the individual asking, seeking for support, saying, I need my need to be met. It's you offering in advance to the student, I see you, I want to help you, I'm looking out for you. And to me, that's a great way to kind of build that confidence in the student and make them more secure.
Exactly. And by taking these extra actions, it may empower the student to begin doing things on their own before you ask them, and it helps them to feel heard and noticed. And I'm not saying that they're going to come in eager and they're going to come in super prepared every day, but it might help a little bit with even just one task that they have to do in a day.
I think a line that's coming to my head right now is start where they are. And success is different for each student. Start with where they are and honor and be excited for those small gains for those students, right?
That's right.
You don't get everybody to some, maximum perfection. That should never be the goal. It's good for that student, and that's awesome.
It is. It's good for both of you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And finally, there are those students who are more reserved, they're quiet, you don't get a lot of responses from them, they may seem indifferent, possibly even angry. And it is possible that they have been let down in their lives or that maybe they're struggling, but you're not going to see that written on their face. And we have to remember, and this is a quote from the book, behind every mad is a sad. I'm just going to repeat that. Behind every mad is a sad. Yeah. And again, I just want to mention that these are the words of a psychologist. We are teachers. We are not psychologists.
We are not.
I am not trained to get to the sad. And I'm not saying that we can't reach these kids, because we can. And sometimes we do get to the sad.
Yeah, we do.
But we do have a limited time with them. And what we can do is just continue to try to connect with them and recognize, maybe that there is a sad behind this mad.
It helps you to really reach empathy faster when you realize that there is sad. Mad is, to me, when someone is mad and around me, defensive can become my response, because I'm, almost putting up a little bit of an armor, and probably my body language and facial expressions match that. But when I look at that student and think, oh, they're hurting inside and they are sad, my body reaction and my face reaction, my voice does change. So that's a great way to kind of flip it, to activate the empathy in you as a teacher.
Right. So, and that's helpful for classroom management, right?
It is.
And the consequence thing. So good thing to note and keep in your mind. And the strategy is to keep finding those positives. It's that constant hello at the door. It's bits of quiet praise here and there, or just a gentle check-in once in a while. And it may take a very long time, but eventually these children will hear you. I've done it. It works in my classroom. I know you've done it many times, and we've seen success with this. And maybe the takeaway, again, it might not be huge, but just by trying, we are, again, putting a drop of water in that bucket, and that's just another piece of success.
And here's kind of a sad bit that I think you'll all be able to relate to, and that is that sometimes you will never know that daily, did you fill up your water bottle, or how was that chess tournament? You might never realize the impact you're having, but I have been blessed and had wonderful experiences whereby, many, many moons later, students have come back to me and pointed out things that I had said or done or been consistent on that was appreciated. And so don't discount the impact that you have spending time face to face every day with your students. It is key.
And I find that, especially with the older grades, you really never find this out until the end of the year.
Yeah, I hope everybody has those moments where they realize that what they were doing was not for naught.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I think when I love I love the analogy of the bucket, and one thing I'm mindful is that you never really know what you're getting at the beginning of the year. Sometimes you get students at the beginning of the year and they have a really full bucket and they're super confident, and you don't have to do nearly as much maintenance of the relationship build and building up of the student. You have to watch for those students, though. Sometimes throughout the year, something happens in their life. They're going through one of the many different things that families and individuals can go through that causes one to feel depleted. It could be a divorce, it could be a family move, it could just be any sort of stress. So just check in with students throughout the year, because sometimes I notice those buckets getting depleted. An exciting example using the bucket analogy is when you you get a student and you identify that you're really going to have to do some work with them, and you consistently do the work. And over time, you realize that you can gradually release how much you're putting in and just, do little check-ins once in a while, because their bucket does get filled. That's always this pleasant surprise. So it's important to take stock, I think, every once in a while of, the temperament of the students in your class and see where it's all at.
So we have all of these kids in our classes. And one more thing Dr. Jody encourages us to ask ourselves is this kid attention seeking or connection seeking? Because is that they don't know how to regulate their emotions. And we are there to help them with that through connections and modeling. We want to get into some examples on how to build on these connections in our classrooms. So once we start identifying the connections needed in the room, we build on creating that safe classroom environment. But how do we do that?
Well, that brings us to topic 2, which is to create a safe space. And again, the big question is how. One of the things that I find to be really effective is to establish really strong communication guidelines, but to do it together. So I will ask my class, how do you want to be treated? And I'll get the students into groups, and I'll get them to get out the chart paper or the sticky notes, and I will get them to respond. I ask students to contribute their ideas about how they want their community to run and what helps them to feel heard. And it really holds them accountable to helping to develop the space. So then once they've done that, you can start to work together to make it happen. It's really important to use very specific language in your classroom and to be really real. I almost always, before any activity, discuss with a group what I want to see, what I want to hear, what words I don't want to hear. And this really helps to prevent some of the issues that it might affect the students and might make it feel like an unsafe space. An example of this would be I would model a bunch of great ways to start conversations, great ways to express an opinion that is different from another person, great ways to encourage someone else, depending on the different ways that students are showing up in the space. Modeling it myself. I even get students sometimes to come to the front of the classroom and practice saying the lines. And it really seems kind of hokey, let me tell you, until you start walking around your class and the most random student who you don't think is going to pick up what you're putting down is using those one-liners, and they're actually working. So it's a really exciting way to get your students involved in creating a safe space. And they're the ones building the community through the way they're communicating with one another. So I think that is one excellent way of creating a safe space, is establishing communication guidelines.
The students play a major role here, and a huge part of it is how they're speaking to each other. But I will bring in the example of phys ed class, because before we ever begin playing an activity in phys ed, I always review the language we need to use. And I use this example because we're playing a physical game and people are making moves that other people may not be so happy with. So if someone makes a nice pass, this is a conversation I have with the class before we start any activity. If someone makes a nice pass or gets a goal, what do we usually say? We usually say, way to go, good job. But what's the other side of that? If someone misses the net, what we don't want to hear is, how did you let that happen? Learn how to play the game. We don't want body language like throwing your arms up in the air or huffing and puffing. What we need to say is, nice try. Next time, maybe try this, if they're looking for your advice.
Yeah.
Because I tell them that saying those hurtful things damages confidence, and they need this to be pointed out and really clearly explained to them. Actually, all the time, they need that. Okay. So
Right.
We're talking about, okay, everyone, we don't want to put people down. We want to build them up. We have to understand that everyone is working at their own levels in our classrooms. We want people who feel comfortable enough to try something and get encouragement from others because they are likely to try that again. For example, serving the volleyball. If it doesn't go over the net, okay, we're going to adjust and we're going to try again. We're not going to complain about that, because if you're doing that in front of a bunch of people and they're all rolling their eyes, well, I wouldn't want to try that again.
You have to be able to feel safe to be able to learn, right?
Yep.
So if you think that you're going to be laughed at, or if there's an environment that you're in where you're going to be mocked for error, you're going to avoid doing the action. So you're not going to make those connections in your brain. You're not going to learn. You're not going to make You're not going to get comfortable, and it's going to hinder the students' relationships with their peers, and it's going to hinder the students' relationship with you when students start to shut down. You were talking about how students start to catch on to this. One of the ways to kind of affirm is to make sure that you're validating what the students are doing. And you don't always have to be the big presenter in front of the entire class. Sometimes you can go to one student and very quietly say, I really appreciate the way that you just spoke to so-and-so about her serve, and point it out very specifically. So one thing that doing that accomplishes is you're saying it directly to the student. But most likely, there's 1 or 2 or 3 students in earshot who are also hearing what type of community is valued in the space that you're in. And it's this, it really does pay you forward. I find it to be a very high yield kind of one-on-one. You don't even have to say it with your voice sometimes. Sometimes you just give a nod, like a very minor thumbs up. I go up to students' desks sometimes and I will write on their page, wow, that was impressive. And it just kind of builds more of what is needed to have a healthy classroom community. Yeah, it's just kind of a fun way to find different ways to give students those positive feedback moments.
Yeah, we're always working our magic even behind the scenes, because not everybody wants to be centered out and say, hey, great job.
One thing about us teachers is we are always on. Every second we are on. We are always looking for ways of building the community into the best possible space and being the best possible person for the student in that moment. You are always on and you are always finding different angles. I don't know. I do a lot of thinking all day long. I know you do too.
A lot of thinking, a lot of encouraging. So when we encourage them and when we affirm them and when we give them this praise, it encourages them to share and connect in their community. So that's going to bring us to creating those commonalities. So let's go to topic 3, creating commonalities in the space.
Okay, well, I love doing this. So in a classroom, you want to kind of build more of those shared experience with students. And you can do this with activities that are fun and engaging. And this, it gives students a stronger sense of belonging. And eventually over time, when you provide those experiences, you have the ability to refer back to those shared experiences and to activate positive memories in your students and to remind them that they are a part of something. They are a part of a community. And let me tell you, it really helps the students in your class to buy in. So for me, rather than decorating your classroom with items that you've bought from a store, made from, who knows where, mass produced, you remind students, I remind students that they are artist Chelsea. We do this all the time. And we make sure that they know that it's their work that decorates the walls of the classroom, student produced work, so that there's ownership over the space.
And work that doesn't have to be perfect. So we're going to encourage, yes, hey, you know what? You can color that background a little bit more.
we honor and respect all work, but why does it always have to be the end product? Learning is about the process.
It's all a progress.
And it's super important that you're also honoring and respecting the early stages of work, the thinking stages of work, the errors that work presents, because that's where you're learning. We all start somewhere, and showing students that process and displaying it is showing that we're all learners and all builders. I really like to show students work that I produced when I was young so they can see just that everyone started somewhere,
Yeah.
And yeah, my printing was the worst in the class. It still is. And I said that because that's true.
I always tell them I got a C in handwriting all the way through.
Yeah? That bad, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's think of some real tangible ways that we can create commonalities. You can have sayings that you do every single day when a certain situation arises that kind of is the stereotypical thing that you as a teacher says out loud. You can have a daily quote of the day where there's an opportunity for students to talk amongst themselves and kind of describe what they think the quote means. That creates kind of a constant social in a routine. On certain days of the week, you can have something that the students can look forward to. For instance, every Monday morning, perhaps you bring something in that you share with the students or ask the students to share something with you. Every Friday, you wrap it up in some way where they feel secure and know you'll be back on Monday and you get to start again. Or there's just many different ways that you can kind of weave a regularity into your space to create commonalities of experience that the students are going to be provided with.
Yeah, so let me throw in the Rube Goldberg contraption that I do at the beginning of every year. to get students to get to know each other, and it's a team building activity. So it's cost effective as well, which is great for teachers. You go around the school, you collect a whole bunch of items, math manipulatives, books, meter sticks, whatever you can find, balls from the equipment room, whatever you can find. And you just put it all in the classroom, you put them in groups, and then you give them the challenge of building a Rube Goldberg contraption. I video it and I take pictures, and then I show them their progress and their success at the end of their activity, which is fantastic. And then it becomes something that we can refer to all year. And they even always want to try it again too. So you're going back to it. You got inside jokes. Remember when this person did this, and they learned how to work together. So that's a way, if you're throwing these activities in every once in a while, then you are creating commonalities between students and between everyone in the classroom.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You have a shared experience that once you're in a lesson where students are frustrated, you say, you know what, this is very frustrating. But when I think back to how you could not figure out how to put together these two pieces of material and you had to use your creative thinking, it's kind of like that. And you're able to bridge for the students that they were actually capable of problem solving and figuring it out and having willpower and perseverance. You give them kind of this tangible evidence for them to go, yeah, I did. And it's something that everybody witnessed and you're pointing out.
Creating commonalities really helps students feel more secure. And it's going back to that whole connection piece of making them feel like they have a sense of belonging because they're sharing these experiences with other people. Now, this is pretty similar to creating those and infusing those traditions into your classroom. But the commonalities are more happening by chance. And the traditions are something that you have set up in your room. So let's talk about those traditions as we promised we would do last episode.
Well, the way that you just described that really makes a lot of sense to me. So now traditions and celebrations are something that, maybe the students help to build that with you, but you're kind of bringing that in as a teacher and sharing a piece and a part of yourself that you want to share to build community and celebrate with students. So I'm just thinking about this. Let me be very real. What's going to happen in my classroom with my personality and the culture of my classroom and the character that the student body brings is going to be completely different. What I enjoy doing and what my students are going to enjoy doing is going to be unique. We are like a bunch of snowflakes. So here are some things that I have enjoyed doing, traditions or celebrations that I've brought into my room. And I'm going to throw out some that I have experienced through going into someone else's classroom and kind of been blessed with moments of, wow, you're amazing. It's not my thing to do. It's yours and you do it really well. But I see that and I see the gains that you've made with your students. So the first one is, I know of a teacher who bakes bread on Fridays in school community, and it wafts through the entire school. And every Friday, the students have that to look forward to. Just throwing that out there. Do you think that a student at home who's on the edge of going or not because they're sick, but they just don't really feel like it, might be nudged forward just a little bit by that bread? I bet you in that classroom, they would be.
Yes.
In my classroom on Fridays, in a grade 7-8 community, I liked to do games day. And I would have at least a block of time where students would play games, and I would change the games up every week. I would change the kind of learning strength that I was focusing on, or I'd have multiple learning strengths in the games, and everybody would get to shine differently. And everybody would get to be a pro. So a student that may not have a huge knowledge of all the different authors who wrote this book or that book might be a real pro at knowing soccer teams or brand name logos. Everybody has a chance to be successful. So Games Day in my space was something that was a tradition that I created that students looked forward to a lot. I also know of people who go for nature walks midweek to break up the week. And those nature walks include kind of stopping and having a conversation that's mindful or grateful. And, that can be a challenging thing to do with a class, but you're on the right track when students start saying, aren't we going to go for our Wednesday walk? Even when it is 25 below. Yes, we live up north.
Yeah. And I do something simple as talking about what happened on your weekend every Monday. I've been doing that for years, not really realizing it's kind of a tradition, right? But it is, because there was a time when I got really busy and I stopped doing it, and someone put their hand up and they said, aren't we going to talk about our weekends today? And then they said, don't you care about our weekends anymore? I didn't actually realize how much they valued it as our tradition in our classroom. So now knowing that, I don't miss a day.
And because this podcast is for teachers and it's about teachers being well, and it's very difficult to balance this complex career that we work, it's important that you build in things that you love and enjoy and look forward to, or help you to be well within the space. I know for me, I look forward to doing certain things, and it helps me to, remain positive and gives me something to look forward to. And that's the great thing about traditions in your classrooms and celebrations. It also marks time and gives students something to look forward to. They're working all week. You're assigning them, putting them into group activities that they're putting in a lot of effort. It's nice to have something that you look forward to where you celebrate accomplishment or celebrate just being together. And that can, be kind of married together with tradition. I love traditions and celebrations.
It's good for the teacher. It is good for the students.
It is.
So why not do it, right? That's the goal here. What's good for you? What's good for the students?
I'm going to throw one more out that we did. Mm-hmm. We did book clubs in our classroom, or literature circles. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of student choice, which made it, very dynamic and very busy for us. But at the end, we combined 2 classes and we did a carousel kind of activity where the students presented the books that they had read. And it was a celebration, and it was a bringing together. And, I think there was food or, tea or something along that line. It was many moons back. So it's hard for me to remember exactly what we did. But it was I don't want to say party atmosphere because I don't want to scare everyone, but it was a joyous, exciting atmosphere to be in. And that's something I always like to do at the end of a unit or, kind of a learning, to have students celebrate their work. And I like to bring something in that makes it special. I like to make tea for the students, herbal tea, as in like apple, just like apple tea.
Don't give them caffeine.
No, I'm not. Like, I feel like everyone's listening and thinking, this woman, what is she thinking? But, you can bring in a warm herbal tea. Tea talk. Yeah, students feel really special when you do things like that.
And I do want to say that if you're not in a permanent position, or you're moving schools and grades a lot, because let's face it, that's a reality, take your traditions with you and use traditions that can be spread over a wider audience, like the weekend talk. That's easy. You can do that with any class. Or your special greetings or riddles or jokes. And you're not reinventing the wheel, of course, with your traditions, because they don't always have to be big and glorious. Just, again, something to look forward to and to be grateful for, and something that becomes automatic for you. This will help with your decision fatigue, and it'll just become automatic in your classroom. And if you find something that really works for you, keep on doing it.
Yeah, there might be years where, it doesn't work out exactly for you. And starting small, I think, is a really key factor to feeling success. Small steps
equal huge results.
Exactly.
All right, now let's do our traditional episode wrap up, Alex, to review what we have scooped from the well today, shall we?
Sure. First, make sure that you take some time to recognize the connections needed, especially the ones that will take more effort, and spend small amounts of time to build on them. This could be a question of the day, or a short conversation, or a check-in.
Second, work on establishing communication guidelines in order to create a safe space. Don't be afraid to be specific in discussing with students what this looks and sounds like.
Third, continue creating commonalities, share experiences, and have everyone contribute to the feel of the space. And do this by using tip number 4. Infuse classroom traditions into your space. Keep your traditions simple but special. This is what makes the year for you and for your students.
Thank you so much again for listening. If you are enjoying the EdYouWell podcast so far, we would really appreciate it if you could give us a rating or review and share the episodes with others.
Join us next time when we talk about you and how to keep your own well full in this ever-changing career. Until next time, be well
and do well.